The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it's Friday. TG.
It's not, thank God it's Friday today, because I'm going to tell you now, it's miserable out there.
And today we're going to talk virtually exclusively about the upcoming vote. And
really?
Yes, the upcoming vote that has been supposedly discussed and fully vetted, which it hasn't, because it's been a pretty not level playing field. But first, let me begin by thanking Alan Sylvia, Representative Alan Sylvia, South End Neighborhood Association, for having us there last night. I know they filmed theirs, and hopefully you'll get to see the film. I think we articulated the position fairly well. They didn't refute anything we said because it's true. But also, Alan, really didn't have to invite us there. The pro side was there, but they presented the month before. So I want to extend our thanks to him and the Neighborhood Association for having us there. It was a good night. We got to present a lot of facts. We're at the end of the road here with the presentations, and unlike at the beginning, they've had time to listen to our presentations and try to refute them, and vice versa. And I think that we've done pretty well, and we'll discuss that. And we have an addition, always late, but always here. He's waiting. We have to wait for him to come out of makeup and get ready. Well, we have a guest on with us today, in addition to CJ and I, and the ubiquitous Carlos, who's hanging around the studio. You ready?
So is my hair combed?
Yeah. Yeah. And now I don't. He needs no introduction, but I will now welcome to the show City Councilor, activist, and any other bouquet you'd like to throw at yourself, feel free to do. But Steve Camara, welcome.
Thank you. It felt like old times again, because here I had to drive through Dunkin' Donuts and on the way to BCC, coming to my old stomping ground. So it's good to be here. Good to be with you, Chip, and with CJ and Carlos. We were the four that presented. Yesterday, we've become the presenting team for the vote no. We are the people's advocates, if you will, the grassroots folks. We're up against a political machine that the people need to understand that now it's in their hands. If this is going to be a people's victory, it's all about the people, because we've got a budget of, I think we've got $25 so far in contributions, and we're having a fundraiser tonight, so we'll weather the storm, come down to Dunny's at 13 North Main Street, help be part of this people's movement. We're up against a $100,000 political machine that's all about the same political machine that's been for 50 years that I've been involved. Some of these same people have been doing some bad things in our community, and I don't think that this is a good thing to vote yes, not because we don't want a new school. I'm a proud Durfee graduate. I want a new school, but I want a school that our people can afford. I'm also somebody in touch with this community every day. I know about opioids addictions. I know about inability to pay rent. I know about evictions. I know about homelessness. 30 years I lived right behind the YMCA. I go down there every day. I just came back. In fact, I'm in my pajamas, I must say, because I didn't have a chance to go home and get into an appropriate dress, but I had some errands and some responsibilities that took longer than expected, so I didn't get to go home, and so excuse my rather casual experience here in terms of clothing. I did comb my hair. Chip and I go to the same barber.
Very noticeable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's you know, we need some levity, we need some smiles, but we also need a victory for the no position, because a victory for the no position is a victory for Fall River, a victory for Fall River's taxpayers and rent payers, and in the long run, I think will be a victory in getting a better school in a better way for the people of Fall River, and particularly for the beloved students of Fall River. They deserve something better. What's coming down the road is not going to be better. We've got to vote no on Tuesday, and we've got to pass the word of mouth, because we don't have the radio time. Thank goodness for cable TV, because this is the one place where you're getting straight talk, where you're getting honest presentation.
Yeah, Steve, I got to interrupt here because
I can almost hear you.
Mike, see,
my mic is on.
we're not hearing you. Wait, Carlos is going to turn it up a little bit.
Oh, you can't hear me in there, yeah.
Okay, good.
There you go. I have to interrupt you a little bit because one of the things that I was discussing today with our station manager and a few other people, it's something that I've been touting very clearly on a regular basis. Why didn't the city council just vote to accept the project and the money? That's all that was required by MSBA. Under 8-02, they only had to accept the project and the money and say they were going to fund this project. But instead, they went directly to the Proposition 2.5 override, creating this problem in and of itself. Had they accepted the money, they would have had more time to figure out how they were going to fund it, because it would have been within that 120-day timeline.
It's a good question. Why don't we? Why do things slip by or move by us? We do depend upon an administration that presents points of view. And when the question came, both in our briefing meetings as well as the city council meeting, it was stated quite clearly that this is the way the question needs to be put on the ballot in order for us to move forward. This is being conducted in conjunction with the school department and the MSBA, and the question needs to be very specific as it is worded. It was presented as a very simple, de facto, this is the way it's going to be done. And it sounded logical, and I think it is logical that you have to put a question on the ballot. The language of that question needs to be very much specified by state mandate, and the language is on the ballot as it is specifically required. So, you know what?
But that's not the position. The position that I have is we did not have to put this on the ballot yet. Mm-hmm. All the city council had to do under 8-02 was to accept the project and the money and say that the city was going to fund it. And it was referenced in 8-02 as an attachment A.
Well, this is the first time that this comment was made. It was not made during citizen input time. It wasn't made by you previously. It wasn't made by anyone. What was made to us as members of the council individually and collectively is that we needed to have a ballot question, and I did challenge the timing of the ballot question. And
I remember you doing that.
Let me make certain and specific that this could have been voted on in November so that more people could have participated, and I think with more participation you get a better sense of what the community is all about. But there is an intent to have special elections for special funding, and that's how we got it. So it is what it is. We're faced with what we're faced with. Let's move to March 6th.
Well, let's get to the point. And if you watch last night's tape, I think it was articulated pretty well. The reality is that there needs to be no specificity. All you have to do is say you're going to fund it. How you fund it's up to the community. As long as you sign the proper paperwork that you have agreed to fund it, the MSBA will give you the money. But again, this is another classic case of the way Fall River does business, reactively, not proactively. We've said at our presentations numerous times that you guys got 4 or 5 pages that had a few lines in very large font taking up the page. You could have put that on a half a page in normal font. And that's what you got for a $263 million or $64 million project. Yet communities, as we've talked about at length on this show, like Wayland and Amherst, got 40 and 50-page reports with the impact. And please look at last night's meeting at the South End Youth Center. It will be on at some point.
South End neighborhood, yeah.
We articulate that position. The problem we have here is, and I want to get back to something we opened up and we talked about. Some of the people have done, the presenters. This is an issue where some people made a lot of comments, but I have to be perfectly frank, and I think my colleagues will agree. The presenters, we never had a problem. Paul Coogan and I, we had a forum. We go back a long way. They presented it, and I think the reality was what I said at last night's meeting. They're advocating for school, and I understand that. Most of them are educators or tied into the educational community, and they were given one option to fund it, and they're looking at that. We have to have a school, and this is our only option, but that isn't true. That's opposition. Opposition, that is not true. The fact is that they talked about if we don't do this, we've only got 100 days. We gave actual, not theories, we gave actual points where this city misrepresented its financial position on numerous occasions. We all know about the healthcare holidays twice, the five accounts, and we had Councilor Maioza there who acknowledged that. He was on the council that were dormant for 25 years. The reason that we call for an independent forensic audit all the time is just this. As I said last night, if you shake that tree, money's going to fall out. The city took the easy way out. We can run our budget and make an exclusion. Our position is this has a dramatic impact on the people of Fall River. People won't be able to pay their rent. This isn't just a tree, and I understand it, and I respect the fact that they want a school. But you're going to have a school system with almost 80% of the people on a school lunch program going back now to their apartment or their house where their parents have even less money, because it's not only the impact of this, the impact of when's the last time we didn't have a 2.5 increase? When's the last time we didn't have increases in water and fees? This is an ongoing erosion of people's income. It's not, it is not, an accident that we're the poorest city in the state. Because the people who work here, and we've heard them at some of these meetings, we had a woman at one of our meetings get up and say her husband's working at the hospital, which is and working there for a long time, making $13 an hour. She works, she doesn't make that much. They scrimped and saved to buy a house, and now they're on the verge of losing that house because, unfortunately, the average person in Fall River, this has a dramatic effect. And I'll wrap it up right now and let my colleagues lay in. But the reality is, if you look at bonds and debt exclusions, and you read about them, which I did, and research them, and you look at some of these reports, you'll also read that the two major elements that a community has to look at when they vote on a debt exclusion is the impact on the community, which in our case is devastating, and the impact on the individuals in that community, which again is devastating. So those two factors, a debt exclusion is not an answer. It's another problem. We're imposing more erosion on an already beleaguered community. So with that, somebody weigh in.
Well, I think you're on point there, Chip. And for people who may have not seen it, yesterday in the Herald News, they published a story. Roadmap is set for Durfee, but questions remain if it will be followed. And Mary Sahadi confirmed every single thing we've been talking about. Everything we've been talking about over and over again. The fact that plans do change, and there is no guarantee that this $40 million subsidy is going to happen. And she says that, well, this administration is going to look at trying to keep that. Trying. Again, everything's trying. Maybes. Possiblies. There's too many possibilities in this project. There's too many uncertainties. There are things we don't know about. And what happens? People are going to plan for $115 or thereabouts for a tax increase, and then all of a sudden, they get hit with a $230 bill or a $245 or $345 bill. And then they say, what happened? And it says, well, we don't have the money to do it. But you said you had it.
And here's a factor that needs to be recognized, too, by the people, because they're indicating that this is all that it's going to be, you know, that somehow that in the years to come, we're not going to have other overrides. We're not going to have other financial obligations. We're not going to have other taxing onto our tax bills and renters onto their rent bills and all of that, businesses having to deal with all the expenses of increased water and sewer and everything else. Well, just this week I attended and I took some quick notes at a Diamond presentation that I went to at Diamond Regional Vocational Technical High School. Very well presented, and maybe the city should learn on how to present something nicely. They did a wonderful presentation, tours in the morning and presentation. The mayor was there, and the mayor said to the group that was present, we've got to be basically saying having an appetite to override Proposition 2.5 in order to pay for a new Diamond. So here it is, we haven't even voted on Tuesday and already the message is out there, and I heard the message. And it was a televised, I believe the students at Diamond were televising this meeting. Certainly it can be verified. There were many people there that heard it, that we need to face it. And when the calculation, because with census changes, the number of students coming from Fall River, Somerset, Swansea, and Westport, those are the 4 communities that feed Diamond, Fall River is going to be responsible for 66% of the new construction of a new Diamond. And Diamond needs, as does other schools. Bristol Agricultural School is also going to be weighing in on an expansion plan. They're very excited. They've been approved by the MSBA already to get their hat into the ring so they can have a new school. That's something, too, that Fall River has to contribute to. I have a suggestion to you today. If you can get out, take a drive by Talbot Middle School, because I have a parent actually a parent of a teacher. She drives her daughter to school to teach at Diamond, and she said that they go through wading through water in order to get in and out of that school, which is an all-electric school. Imagine having an all-electric anything in this day and age. So Talbot, too, is a school that needs to be replaced. So I, as an individual, have a vision on how to deal with these kinds of things. But I don't want to, people say, put it out there, write it up, get it out there. I think that we've got to stay focused on one issue right now. We all love to multitask, and sometimes when you multitask, things get tripped on, and then you get confused as to what task you're dealing with. Let's stay focused on this task of voting no on Tuesday. But upon doing that, let's talk about the vision that we have for Fall River's educational future. Let's talk about Diamond. Let's talk about Bristol Agricultural School. Let's talk about Talbot Middle School that needs to be replaced. Other people tell me Tansy definitely is a school that needs to be replaced. There are classrooms and trailers there. And this is true throughout the community. So, you know, there's so many reasons to vote no. We've heard some of them, misinformation. I do want to do this because I think it's one of my strong suits, is that when this first came before the council, I was criticized for objecting for any action until we had some further conversation. And boy, are we having further conversation. And I'm glad I objected, even though I was taken to task with an editorial by WSIR that I probably should have been tarred, feathered, and moved out of town, according to the editorial. But the reality is that because I delayed that, and we've had now this serious conversation about that, we've gotten away from this mantra that they used to give us. This is an 80-20 split. It's only going to cost the city 20% to build this school. 80% is going to be built by the state. And everybody was like jumping up and down saying, grab it. Only 20%, grab it. Until they said, oh, wait a minute, now that 80% is only for reimbursable expenses. Actually, the city is going to be responsible for 38%. The state will pick up 62%. But then, upon further research and further review, the 32% did not include the interest. We have to pay interest. Mary Sahadi is suggesting 4.5%. I don't know if anybody has adjustable mortgages these days, but those percentages are going up gradually. And in 3 years, will that 4.5% be 5.5% or some other percentage higher than what's being projected? Because then you've got to take into account not just the principal, but the interest. And if you do that, the split now is shifted. It's 48-52. With the state providing 48%, the city providing 52%, and that 52% is going up every day. So let me suggest to you, don't buy into the fuzzy math that's being presented by the city, by the school department, and by this definitely this Vote Yes committee. And I do want to spend a little bit of time talking about the committee. You know, maybe I'll let you drive this bus, Mr. Bus Driver, but I think we need to talk about the $100,000 campaign that we're up against that is funded predominantly by non-residential property owners in Fall River. There are a lot of businesses, there are a lot of banks. The banks are the biggest group. And I have an editorial I tried to put in the paper about 50 years ago when the Durfee Theater was demolished. It was one of the most passionate fights I had in Fall River because it was such a wonderful theater. Some of the leadership of this Vote Yes committee were there back then 50 years ago saying demolish the Durfee Theater because we need a big bank building on that corner instead of a Durfee Theater and the 20 independent businesses that were there. So I hope we'll have a little bit of time to talk about the committee, why it's wrong. Good people, individually, the salt of the earth people, but people that are out for their own vested interest and their own personal interest and their own business interest. Of the $50,000 just raised so far as of the middle of February, so you know that they've raised more money since the middle of February, $10,000 approximately of that $50,000 are from people that don't even live in Fall River. Their addresses are from out of town. And then the rest of it are predominantly corporations, the largest of which is $12,500 from BayCoast Bank, plus that big billboard that cost another almost $6,000, which is listed, was it eight?
Eight.
As an in-kind contribution, again, from BayCoast. If you're a BayCoast...
Who, by the way, on that, used a branch address, not their actual headquarters address, which is in Swansea.
Right.
So that's another little kind of misleading, you know, when you look at, you know, Robeson Street, Fall River, the donations attached to a branch, but, you know, we have to remind everybody that BayCoast moved its headquarters from Fall River on South Main Street, or North Main Street, no, North Main Street, actually, over to Swansea. They're now in Swansea Mall Drive.
Right.
So.
And this is not made up figures. These are figures from the city clerk's office through the Office of Campaign and Political Finance, the report that was issued and received on February 26th by the city of Fall River. So we're not putting out there misinformation. I mean, this is about truth, and that's why People for a Better Way is about truth and about trying to understand and get through the gobbledygook that's trying to give us a boondoggle, as they gave us a boondoggle 40 years ago, and we're getting another boondoggle again.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is, Steve brought up, we're opening up the door. You can already see the groundwork being laid. I find it really ironic that communities like Wayland, and I keep using Wayland, and they say, why? Well, because you look at the community of Wayland and look at their presentation, and then look at the fact that the people in Wayland can afford this easily. The average household income in Wayland is over $200,000 a year. It's a small town. But they make sure it's their money and it's going to be used appropriately. They review. They had a report 53 pages long. Now you look at Fall River, the powers to be, the money men, whatever you want to call them. It's always been, trust us. You know, we know what's good for you. It was like when they had the mills, trust us. We know what's good for you. Go down and get chained to a machine. That's the problem, the misinformation. And they're saying you can't do it any other way. And they turn around and they try to convince you that we can't do it in 100 days. Well, the city's lost numerous arbitrations. They had to come up with millions of dollars, and they did. It's not rocket science, people. All you got to do, as we did with the healthcare suit, is get in some accountants, and if they can't do it themselves, get in some accountants, let them do the audit we needed years ago. They'll find some ways, and then probably a better way. But the reality is, and it gets down to this article in the Herald News, when we present with our presentation, they're facts. And if they're not facts, we'll say, they're opinions. But when CJ starts quoting the law about the MSBA, he'll give you chapter and verse. When I talk about various issues, I can tell him. I told him yesterday, I've got the depositions, we've got the final products. Everything Mary Sahadi said confirms what we're saying. There's not one of these figures that's carved in stone. And as a matter of fact, what isn't in our report is what's prominent in the Wayland and the Amherst report is that doing something like this adversely affects your bond rating. So right out of the gate, that 4.5, this is why they always couch well, you know, nothing's absolute. Well, guess what? The only thing that we know is absolute is they're going to be looking for a new Diamond Vocational Regional. They're going to be looking for more schools. And this is the beginning. This is the first battle. Because once we look at this, if we don't vote this down, they will be looking for an override for every single thing they do so they can run their budget and have us pay additional taxes. And this community just can't sustain it. It's unsustainable.
And I want to underscore, too, this override. They don't want us to call it an override, but in fact, CJ is better than me in terms of the legal identification of an override. This is one of the types of override of Proposition 2.5. Now, when Proposition 2.5 was established, there were many of us that did not want to see it established. But ultimately, I think I've come to learn, and I think others have come to learn, that we need to control property tax increases as the primary functioning of our local government. Even Deval Patrick, when he left office, said his greatest regret was that he didn't address the issue of property tax reform. Property tax is the most regressive, meaning it hurts those people who can least afford it than any other tax. It's totally unjust, and Chip addresses it when he talks about Wayland, and I'm a little tired of Wayland and Amherst. I know Amherst quite well, went to school there. They're very wealthy communities compared to Fall River, but he's right. They did their 50-page reports to the community. This was the Fall River report. This was the Fall River report. And it's like, you know, I think it is more than 5 pages, probably with the cover page, 6 or 8 pages. But this is it. And this is not comprehensive by any means. But let's get to the issue of why I think there's a better way, and why I think if we can vote no on this issue, we can actually get to the point of a better place. There is a temperament and an attitude now to overcome the property tax as the means of funding government. We need a progressive tax so that the kids from Fall River, from 02720 to 02724, are not at a disadvantage because they're relying upon a poor city's property tax base rather than most of Massachusetts that's relying on a wealthy, all of Massachusetts relying on a more wealthy property tax base. We're going to elect a new governor. We're going to elect our legislators again, the state reps and the state senators. Ask them that question. How are you going to give us property tax relief? How are you going to develop a progressive tax system so that the people who can afford it can pay more? Because we're a commonwealth. We help out each other. That's supposed to be what happens. We're not looking for a handout from the Commonwealth. We're looking for a share from the Commonwealth. The city of Fall River gives a lot of its blood, sweat, and tears through the factories historically. Our children, our ancestors, our grandparents that worked in those mills from daylight to sunset, sunrise to sunset. You know, and our soldiers too, by overwhelming disproportionate numbers, give to our country's military. To so many other kinds of, even today, our city's workers and our clothing producers and our hospitals, all of which are in Fall River, provide for a much larger community. We need relief. We need a progressive tax system that now funds education as a right, not as something, a privilege based upon what your zip code is. We need a change. People for a Better Way are ready to bring that change. We need your no vote on Tuesday.
And we also have to stop. We can't be schizophrenic. We can't be worrying about our expenditures when we create new positions at almost every meeting and giving. But to get back to Steve's presentation, CJ, can you get this on the camera? All right. Look at the size of that font. Look at the size of that font. If we did a 12 or a 14 font, we could get this on a quarter of a page. So they actually gave us a quarter of a page. So remember something. This is about ability to pay and about the path we take from now on. So vote no, and come to Dunny's tonight.
6 o'clock at Dunny's tonight, 13 North Main Street. Come and join the people's movement for a better way and for a better school for our kids.
And by the way, we were branded the Goliaths.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you on Monday.